Welcome to the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, where rude mechanicals do magic. Hello, I'm Bronze Age, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage. And today we're going to be working on this, whatever it is. Opinions vary. Now, it's obviously a pedestal, but a quite unusual one. And what its original purpose was, nobody seems to know. The owner of this piece says it's been in his family's home for as long as he can remember, going back to his childhood, and it was probably been there long before that. And he has no idea of where it possibly could have come from or how they acquired it. It's made almost entirely of millwork. Some of the pieces are loose, and that's what we'll be working on today. There's damage here from a most likely a vase or a flower pot put here on the top. No sign of any original finish. The crown has more millwork underneath it, leading down to this kind of a flattened pyramid applique. Below that, another applique that's made up of three different pieces of wood with contrasting grain. And below that, another panel with walnut burl veneer. On the lower half, we've got this piece here where apparently something's missing, but it's missing on all six sides, so we have no idea what it was. Another panel with the veneer, going down to one last panel with veneer. There's also a bit of marquetry here, and it's not in really good condition, but we're not going to be worried about doing anything about that today. Now, what sets this pedestal apart from any other kind of ordinary plant stand is right here on this side, where we have this curious feature. Right here, we see a pair of hinges, and then just below it we see mortises where some hinges have been removed. When I was trying to solve the mystery of the hinges, I discovered that thanks to failed glue, the whole crown comes off the top of it. Now, secret or hidden compartments in furniture has always been popular, but in this case, with the hinges showing, it's obviously not a hidden compartment, it's just a convenient one. And this appears to be held on with only 2 screws remaining out of the 6 which would have held this together originally. I don't expect we'll be finding any lost will or Confederate gold or anything like that in this piece. And sure enough, no, we haven't. Now, this cloth would have originally been on here. That would have been the bottom of our compartment. There's our original hinges. So this 6 pieces of trim here would have stayed on here, making a fairly shallow lip around the whole thing. And it all would have just flipped over like that. Why they abandoned the original hinges and put these obviously bigger and rougher ones, I don't know. But you can see how nails are broken off where they would have held the this molding to the base here. It might be a clue to what it actually was, possibly some kind of paraphernalia out of a fraternal organization, something similar to the Masons, Oddfellows, Fraternal Order of Eagles, Moose Lodge, who knows? There were dozens of those kinds of organizations back in the 1800s, and any one of them probably could have had something like this in their lodge. Now, before I worry about the loose pieces of trim, I've got to address the problem of missing pieces of trim. Fortunately, for every missing piece, I have got an old one that I can use as a pattern. Now we're over at the CAB router table. And thanks to an afternoon of very diligent and careful work, this is the squarest, flattest, truest piece of 4x4 pine in existence. Reproducing old molding is usually just a case of looking through the router bit cabinet and coming up with the profiles that are going to match the old work. In this case, I had to take the bearing off of this router bit so that I could get close enough to make that cut. Now, it was fairly easy to make this profile, mainly because I could cut it on the edge of a wider board, which gave me something to hold on to and kept my fingers a little farther away from the cutter. But this piece, a little more complicated. I'm not going to be able to do it that way. So I've got to take some extra precautions to keep my fingernails on the ends of my fingers. This is a Miller Falls miter box. It's just a simple fixture made for keeping a saw straight when you have to cut a precise angle. It's called a miter box because the original version of it was more box shaped, but quite limited in the number of angles that you could cut. This miter box has this little gauge on the side where it can be tilted and locked back in place at all the common angles used in woodworking. We've got 45 here and 30 here, which is what we're going to be using. Now, most of the trim on this piece was installed with nails, which held it in place until the glue dried. These pieces have no nail holes in them, so I'm going to be putting them back together with no nail. The glue we're going to be using for this is hide glue, which is called that because it's made from horse hides and various other parts of the horse and various other animals, which makes this no longer a vegan project. But we'll just have to live with that. The reason I'm using this is because that's the original glue that went on here before, and they call it reversible, and I really don't have a better reason than that. We'll let that sit overnight and continue the project in the morning. While we're waiting for those pieces to dry, we can install some of this trim on the top because it won't need to be clamped. it's nailed on. Now, people are often surprised to discover that their fine furniture is held together with nails. Uh, the types of nails that were used were what's called cut nails, because they were made from a sheet of steel that was simply sliced off on a big giant machine that made plenty of these things in industrial fashion. And these were used, well, all the way up until the 1900s. The machine that made the familiar wire nails came out in the 1870s, and they were so much cheaper to make them that way that they soon became the standard nail for just about everybody in the world. This is one of the original ones. Very small, very slender, again, the square profile. And I couldn't find any like these. The ones I needed that were in here, most of them were broken off. So I had to make some. And it's not really that difficult, because inside every big nail is a little nail trying to get out. We'll say this glue does seem to work fairly well. I can't say it smells that good. Now the last step is to replace this molding right here from this ring. And a lot of the pieces are loose, which is to be expected. High glue definitely has a lifetime. When it expires, it expires. And as I said, the nails were strictly just to clamp it in place until the glue set. Because if the glue failed, I could pull that off right there with the nail intact. Of course, the real fun here is that even though these pieces all look a lot alike, no two are the same length, because they were cut and fitted as they went around. And it came in with a couple of loose pieces, so I've got to go back and get all these pieces fitted back in where they should be before I start gluing them down. Well, that's pretty much it for this project. Next, the replacement pieces will be stained to match. Then we'll scrub it very gently, wash it down, get all this old dust and accumulation of grime, and then a coat of wax before it goes back to the customers. It would have been fun to restore the secret compartment, fix those hinges, but we're not going to do that right now. Not something the customer wants to do, so maybe in the future. In any case, this is Bronze Age for the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, and I thank you for sitting through this video with me. I appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. And again, thank you, and hope to see you next week.